Money Radio 1510, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure for me to welcome back the editor and publisher of the Trends Journal, Gerald Celente. Gerald, welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me. Good to hear your voice again.
Good to talk to you again. We first talked years back on the radio. You had written a book and sent a copy to us at the radio station, and it was, it was What Zizzy Told Honey Boy. Was that it?
Yeah, that's very good. What Zizzy Gave Honey Boy.
What Zizzy Gave Honey Boy, yeah. And there was this picture of Zizzy.
My aunt. Zizzy is, Zia, of course, is aunt in Italian, and Zizzy, that's the dialect. They call her auntie, so she's my special auntie.
And it was such a great picture of her. We looked at the picture around the radio station for a while, and we just kind of left it out on the desk for a while. But the picture was so captivating that I ended up reading the book and went, this is really a great book. And so I ended up calling you, and we ended up doing interviews, and it turns out that you've really got your finger on a lot of solid trends over the past few years. You've done a good job of identifying these trends and bringing it to our attention.
Well, yes, my other books, of course, were Trends 2000 and Trend Tracking, and we have published the Trends Journal. So that book was, it was more of a, although it reads like a novel, it's still nonfiction. Mm-hmm. But, I've been at this for 30 years now, and, the longer you do it, the more you see going on. There's really not a lot new. It's just the faces change and the lines change, but the history keeps repeating itself, not precisely, but close enough. It's like an old song, you hear different people cover a standard, but the tempo changes and the beat, but the lyrics are the same.
Well, I guess part of what I'm trying to say here is that your writing skills are good and sharp, and they come across on issues such as the trends, even if history just repeats or rhymes. One of the ideas that you've talked about, guess what? Back in the news again, the idea of direct democracy, and that seems to be part of the issue that's coming forth from the Occupy Wall Street movement. Yes,
it is. And actually, funny, you mentioned that Occupy Wall Street. Do you know in my book Trends 2000 that I wrote, actually in 1995, it came out in January of 96. It was a Warner book. I predicted into the future, in the new millennium, that they would be marching on Wall Street, the Federal Reserve. And the reason they were doing it was because of the gap between the rich and the poor. And I called it the 90% rather than they're calling it the 99% now. The 90% who didn't have what the 10% had, and that was 2/3 of the nation's wealth. So, and when you look at what they're calling for at all these movements is direct democracy. We do not have a representative form of government. That's a big lie. The only people our politicians represent are the ones that give them the most amount of money. They call it campaign contributions. Adults call it bribes and payoffs. And if you think I'm full of baloney, call up your senator or congressman and say, "Hi there, Jane Smith over here, and I'd like to speak to Congressman so-and-so." And you'll get some flunky on the end of the phone telling you how busy the congressman or senator is and that you'll give them the message. But then call back and say you have a $40,000 check you'd like to deliver. See how far you get that. So direct democracy on issues of war. On issues, you want to keep the war on drugs going? Let's have a vote on it. You want to bail out the banks? Let's have a vote on it. Do you want the Patriot Act to continue? Let's have a vote on it. If we could bank online, we could vote online. And then people say, well, if you have the mob rule, then, 51% of the people it'd be like a mob. Well, that's what you have now. It's called mob rule, but it's not the Gambinos and the Bananos. They give them different names, Republicans and Democrats.
You know what? You're right. I kind of wish you weren't, but I think you are. And right now it's not just the Republicans and Democrats, but it's also the J.P. Morgans, the Goldman Sachses, and the other big banks and others who, as you say, put the money in, and they're quite frankly running the place, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Wall Street has hijacked Washington. Who was the Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton when they began to reverse the Glass-Steagall Act that would have prevented the banks from becoming these investment houses that gambled and lost, and we had to bail them out?
Oh, see, that was Bob Rubin, wasn't it?
Yeah, where was he from?
Oh, that was from Citigroup and Goldman.
Right, well, he came from Goldman, went to Citigroup after they did that big, by creating that one-stop shop supermarket. I think he made like $100 and some odd million as a consultant with Citigroup. And then who comes in under George Bush? Oh, Henry Paulson. Gee, where did he come from? The guy who gave us TARP.
Yeah, that was
remember
Goldman.
The one that was going to save people's homes?
Goldman Sachs, yeah.
Goldman Sachs, CEO. And who's chief of staff of Obama?
Ah.
Bill Daley, vice chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Wall Street is Washington. Washington is Wall Street. It's not a revolving door. It's an open door. And the open door is the money that floods to the politicians who you could buy off on pennies on a dollar. You know, I began my career, by the way. I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County in New York, and then they sent me up to Albany, and I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate. And then from there, I was the government affairs specialist in D.C., putting together political action committees. And so I got to see what it looks like. I know the game. Matter of fact, one of our writers for the Trends Journal is Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who was the Assistant Treasury Secretary under Reagan. So, you know, we have enough of us that have been around. We know what the deal is. And all these politicians are, by the way. These are the same people you couldn't stand in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. The suck-ups, the brown-noses, the bow-downs, the overly ambitious, and the glad-handers that would tell you anything and wanted to tell you how to run your life. Now they follow their career path. That's all this is. It's one bad show.
But they're so good at telling us. They're good at predicting this stuff. I mean, wasn't it Bernanke who said that the subprime problem would have no effect on the economy? Wasn't
That's right.
Wasn't it Biden who said that we would have job growth of around 500,000 jobs per month? Oh, wait a minute. That didn't happen.
No, yeah, gee, I wonder why. You know, if I say that, then they say my forecasts are way off. Oh, here's another one, by the way, just to show you how out of whack it is. Let's suppose we're in, rather than 2011, we're in 1911, and we have a financial crisis, and you and I are sitting down together, and we decide we want to come up with the best brain that we could find to help us get out of this financial crisis of 1911.
Okay.
And I say to you, I got a guy who's a university professor over at Princeton who's an expert in the 1830s.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd say to me, Gerald, what are you, out of your mind? Well, that's what they brag about Bernanke. Here we are in 1911. They brought in an expert of the Great Depression, the 1930s. That's like me knowing how to fix a Model T Ford. What good does it do me now in an age of Ferraris?
Hey, if you got a Model T, it's good news.
Yeah.
For everybody else.
So you have a bunch of people that are incompetent and inept that keep getting more and more chances to mess things up at greater levels.
Why do we keep going with it, though?
Because people, to me, have lost their dignity and self-respect. How could any self-respecting person vote for a politician or believe what they say, and they'll argue about which one is better? Look what happened this past summer. Here we are in October. Most people forgot it already, moving into November. We saw the Washington soap opera play out before our eyes this past summer with the whole debt ceiling issue. They couldn't come to an agreement. What a spectacle. Who could believe this cavalcade of clowns, a true house of wieners, Anthony Wieners. And yet people keep looking to them so to me it's a loss of self-respect. And I have to tell you, I'm all for this Occupy Wall Street. I've been going down there. We have people down there every day. And the reason I'm for it is that, number one, these people aren't tossing Molotov cocktails. They're not doing anything dangerous.
Yeah.
And they're everyday people. They're not a bunch of hippies. Every time you get a demonstration like this, you get an assortment of wackos, of course. But there are a lot of people out there out of work, never had a job, out of college, a lot of debt. And to me, they're focusing in blaming the too big to fails for taking all of the money. I stand with them on that. And I heard this guy, the Pizza King over here, Herman Cain, running for president, saying that these people are anti-capitalist. You got it wrong, Herman. It's anti-capitalist to bail out banks and to bail out your buddies. That's anti-capitalist. If you or I fail, nobody bails us out. Capitalism is supposed to rise and fall on your own merits. And say the story, Herman, and the rest of you guys, that if we didn't bail out the big banks, the whole world would have come crashing down.
There was a name for a system like that where the corporations basically took over politics and the economy. They had a name for it about 70, 80 years ago in Italy. I think it was called fascism.
I think you're right. Fascism has come to America. Look what's going on. We're old enough to remember. I remember as a kid. Remember when there used to be drugstores and you knew your local pharmacist?
Sure.
You didn't have three companies running the whole game? Remember when there were mom-and-pop shops and not Walmart, Target, and Macy's taking all the action? Remember when there were a load of farmers out there and slaughterhouses rather than a handful running the whole show? You remember in broadcasting when there were all of these different stations owned by independent owners and all of those newspapers, we weren't genetted to death?
Oh, yeah.
So it's been one big takeover. Fascism has come to America.
Gerald, what is the Celente solution?
To me, the Celente solution at this time is direct democracy. Let the people vote. And we have to go back again. People ask me, look, if your life was better than it is now, what worked better before that changed it to become worse? Let's put back in place those rules and regulations that were put in place that made the country really an equal playing field. The Robertson-Patman Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, put in place so the robber barons wouldn't rob us. The Glass-Steagall Act, so the bankers couldn't become this criminal group that's taken over the country, that's enslaved us with debt. Let's put them back into place. Remember pre-NAFTA? Remember how they promised us that our lives and livelihoods and quality of life would improve? After free trade, it's not free trade. We're dealing with communist and fascist countries, dictators, where they have slave labor. You get the product made over there, ship it back over here, and mark the price up. Let's put those rules back in place and direct democracy. Let the people vote. Obama hits the stage in March 18th, actually a very auspicious day, same day that Bush hit the stage in 2003 when he took us to war against Iraq for the weapons of mass destruction and ties to al-Qaeda they never had. And now this guy Obama takes us to war against Libya on March 18th. And rather than taking us to war, let the people vote. Do you see that humanitarian mission? Has anybody looked at the photos of how they destroyed Libya? What a big lie, humanitarian mission. We wouldn't be in Iraq or Libya if their major exports were broccoli.
You got that right. Stick around. We're going to take a quick break. More to come with Gerald Celente. Gerald Celente, the editor of the Trends Journal, and we will continue after a traffic update right here on Money Radio 1510.